Hello, chess fans. Welcome to another edition of Chess Chat, a program designed to give you, the viewer, a better understanding of the fascinating world of chess. I am your host, George Marajanian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club meets every Wednesday evening in room C-159 of the McKay Campus School at the university. And with me today at the FEB facilities in Fitchburg, working in the control room is our highly skilled director, Darren Dame. Assisting him on audio is Fitchburg State University senior and soon-to-be graduate Ron Bagnera. And assisting both of them is a multi-time Wachusett Chess Club champion, Bruce Felton of Fitchburg. And behind the camera is one of our most staunchest Wachusett Chess Club members, Brian Bigelow of Leominster. And last but not least is my longtime associate and trusty co-host, Martin Lane of Lunenburg, one of the strongest and most active chess players in north central Massachusetts. Hi, Marty.
Hello, George. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure seeing you, Marty. Well, Marty, you know, in view of the fact that this year is a presidential election year, and we are celebrating President's Day on February 20th, and two of our greatest presidents, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, were born in the month of February, it is only fitting that we devote today's program to U.S. presidents who played chess.
Yeah, I think that was a good idea when you proposed it. I hadn't really thought about it too much before, and you came up with some fairly remarkable stories about presidents who played chess or who had some connection with the game. Nearly 3/4 of our 44 presidents had some connection with chess, and some of them were quite good players, as it turns out.
And you mentioned this research. Now, again, I did some research, but I have to give a lot of credit to one of the foremost chess historians in the country named Bill Wall, who did a lot of research on our U.S. presidents, and he came up with a lot of interesting information that I think is going to really be of great interest to our viewers. Good. Now, but we want to start off actually with a person who was worthy of being president, but never served as president. And right. Who was that?
Well, Ben Franklin, one of our founding fathers, and so we sort of decided to make him an honorary president. Yes. Because he was an avid chess player. Yes. He was supposedly quite a strong chess player, and he even wrote a book on chess.
Right. Well, actually, it was an essay, but it was the first writing on chess in America. It actually appeared, he wrote it in 1779, but it didn't appear in a American publication until 1786. It was called The Morals of Chess, right. And it was actually an essay that actually provided advice or education on how you should conduct yourself at the chessboard right. in the course of a game.
Right, and it praised chess as a way of developing patience, developing the ability to plan in foresight, looking ahead, being cautious, and so on. So it was kind of a more, he called it the morals of chess because it was kind of meant to be a lesson.
He thought very highly of chess.
Sure.
And he found it very beneficial because it actually had a great influence on one's life. You know.
Right.
Now, as far as starting with presidents, well, let's start with our presidents. Well, who was our first president?
First president, George Washington.
Right.
We don't know much about how much he played chess, but we do know that he did play. There is an anecdote, a small story, that Martha Washington once asked him, well, what does he do in his spare time? Because he was away from home so long. And he said he enjoyed reading, writing, and playing chess.
Right. And there is he owned an ivory chess set, which is found actually in the U.S. National Museum in Washington, D.C. So anyone visiting that museum will be able to see Washington's chess set. Okay, let's now go to our second president.
Well, and then John Adams from Massachusetts.
Right.
He supposedly, I mean, there's not much discussion about whether or not he played chess, so there seems to be some conflicting information. David McCullough's book says he didn't know the game of chess. Another source says he taught his son, John Quincy Adams, how to play. Right. John Adams certainly made a couple of voyages across the Atlantic. Someone else commented that chess was a great way to pass the time when you're on a ship. So he at least may have taught his son how to play. We don't know too much about how he played.
Although he did write an autobiography in which he said he devoted his time. In fact, he says in one of his biography, he spent his evenings when John Adams was in France. Right. Remember, he was actually a minister to France I think it was in 1770. Yeah,
Right.
before we even became
Right,
a country.
right.
He played. He said he played in the evenings in France. And he also played cards,
Right.
but he played chess.
Well,
So
and at one time, Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson were all in France.
Yes, they were ministers, yes,
right.
ministers of France.
They
yeah.
had different responsibilities. They were there negotiating different things.
Okay.
And all three of them passed their time playing chess in various places. Ben Franklin used chess as a tool of diplomacy. That was his entree to speaking to powerful people and people who had influence, was to play chess.
Chess was an introduction to
Right,
the diplomats.
And then after John Adams came Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, let's talk more about Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson, like Franklin, was a real chess enthusiast. When
Yes.
on his trips to France, he bought up chess books. His most treasured chess book was Philidor's.
Oh, yes.
The analysis.
The
of chess.
analysis of chess, right.
Right.
And by the way, Thomas Jefferson had a sizable library. I think it was over 6,000 books. And when the British burned, I think it was in 1814, late August 1814,
right.
they burned the White House, they burned the Capitol, and the Library of Congress was one of the buildings they burned. Well, they lost all their books. Thomas Jefferson made an offer to sell his books to the Library of Congress. That formed the nucleus
Of the modern
Library of Congress.
right.
And he had a sizable chess collection. So he was actually a very passionate chess player, Thomas Jefferson.
He studied it. And in fact, some of his last writings were endgame problems. He was working out ways to play rook and bishop endgames, for instance.
Yes.
So he did some work on chess on his own.
Exactly, right. Okay. Now, all right, so our next president after Jefferson was Madison, James Madison.
Right.
Now, he was one who was a chess player.
Right, really our next two presidents, Madison and Monroe, both kind of go together. In fact, they were neighbors of Jefferson in Virginia. They lived within just a few miles of each other, and which is relatively close for those days. And they were both avid chess players. They in fact got some chess books from Jefferson.
They bought books from him.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so we have both Madison and Monroe being avid chess players. And by the way, and their chess sets, by the way, especially Monroe, he has his set, which could be found in the James Monroe Museum in Virginia. So people going to these presidential, museums will find chess sets that our early presidents owned, and they're on display. Yeah, it's
And
fascinating.
we should probably point out that at this time, chess was not commonly played. It was a game of the gentry, the educated class, and that's how presumably how many of these people learned how to play as part of their training and so on.
Okay. Well, now let's skip a number of presidents. There were other presidents after Monroe who played, but let's skip actually to Abraham Lincoln.
All right, the next president who was maybe the most avid chess player was Abraham Lincoln. Definitely,
Right.
he enjoyed playing chess. We don't really know how or when he learned. I've never seen any
No,
reference.
I haven't seen it. Although one of his sets is in the Smithsonian.
Right, I mean, he did play, but
Yes, right.
where and under what circumstances he learned.
Yeah, no. But there's a story. We actually have a photo of Lincoln with his son Tad. Here's a picture of Abraham.
Right.
Actual photo of Lincoln with his son Tad, whom he taught chess. And there's a story. There's an anecdote about Lincoln and his son. That is, when Lincoln was playing a member of the Supreme Court, actually,
Judge
Illinois
Treat.
Supreme, Judge Treat, who was of the Illinois Supreme.
Right.
This is before
Before he
Lincoln
was
became
president. Right.
But Lincoln's wife told Tad to go tell his father that dinner was ready. So Tad dutifully went to the board where Lincoln was playing the judge, a game of chess, and he said, in fact, Dad, dinner is ready,
Right.
and Lincoln ignored him, ignored his son's call to call him to dinner.
Right.
So what the son did was kick the chess
Yes.
set, the chessboard, and the pieces flew into the laps of both the judge and and Lincoln, and of course the judge was speechless. He didn't know what to say. But that's an anecdote about Lincoln and his son Tad.
Right.
Okay, who's our next president we can talk about after Lincoln?
Well, the next
we have Grant, Ulysses Grant.
Ulysses Grant, that
Yep.
he was an avid chess player. He apparently would play at different military outposts that he was stationed at.
Yes.
And was willing to travel. There was a story that he traveled up to 10 miles just to find somebody who could give him a good game. So he must have been a fairly accomplished player.
Right. it's thought that he learned chess while he was at West Point. And you mentioned the freak, he would travel, some distance, maybe up to 10 miles to find a chess opponent. And when he found an opponent, that who was stronger than him in a match, he persisted in playing a match until he tired out his opponent. Right. So I can imagine these lengthy games that Ulysses Grant played with his opponents. Yeah, just to tire him out in order to win the game. Okay, who do we actually have after Grant that we can talk about?
In that same time frame, a president I don't know very much about, but Rutherford B. Hayes was said to be a very strong player.
Right.
And the kind of curious note that he was taught chess by his mother.
And that's interesting. His mother would teach him the game of chess.
I don't want to sound biased, but one always thinks of chess being passed down from father to son.
Yes, yeah, right. That is biased, right? But his sister, his mother must have also taught his sister, Fanny, because she also played chess. Yeah. So Rutherford Hayes was an avid chess player. Now, who comes after Hayes? We can talk about.
Oh, well, then comes James Garfield.
Right. Now, there's something interesting about James Garfield, is that in a newspaper column, or chess column, in 1880 in Philadelphia, they classified him as a first-rate chess player.
Right.
And the United States Chess Federation, in 2003, in one of their monthly issues of Chess Life, the magazine, they assessed that James Garfield was the strongest playing U.S. president ever.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, through their research. Now, there's a Fitchburg connection to James Garfield. Thanks to Fitchburg historian Joy Contois, she has confirmed that James Garfield, our 20th president, was a cousin to the James Garfield of Fitchburg, who founded the Fitchburg Historical Society. I think it was in 1892. And James Garfield also, I think, was a printer at the Fitchburg, before he founded, it was one of the founders of the Fitchburg Society, he was a printer at the Fitchburg Sentinel. So they were cousins. Right. James Garfield, I think his name was James Freeman Dana Garfield of Fitchburg, was a cousin to President Garfield. So that's our little Fitchburg connection about the Garfields. All right, so we have ended that little group of players. Or do we have any other presidents we can talk about?
If we get into the early 20th century.
Yes, let's talk about early 20th presidents.
Grover Cleveland, I think, would be the next one. He was known to be an avid chess player as well.
All right, let's talk about Grover Cleveland. What do we know about Grover Cleveland as I look at my notes? Because there's so much about these chess players to talk about. I'm going to try to find actually Grover Cleveland. Well, by the way, he was our 22nd and 24th president. He came back. He made a comeback,
right. He was the only president to be elected twice, but with a break in between.
Yeah. And in 1885, there was a machine, a chess-playing machine that they had on display in New York. It was on display. You could come and play it. It was called Ajib. It was actually at the Eden Museum in New York, and he actually visited this chess automaton.
Now, would this have been the same automaton that an earlier president, we didn't mention Andrew Jackson earlier, he was also an avid chess player.
Yes.
And supposedly a kibitzer. He tended to give advice to other players.
Yes.
He also reportedly played an automaton. Was there only one automaton?
No, this was another. This is a different. This is called the Turk.
Okay.
What Andrew Jackson played was an automaton called the Turk.
Okay.
This was another automaton called Ajib. So
there were a couple of them.
there were at least a couple. Okay, who do we have actually after Grover Cleveland that we can talk about?
We have
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Teddy Roosevelt. How did he get involved in chess? What was his involvement in chess?
Teddy Roosevelt, again, enjoyed playing chess, especially on his hunting trips.
Yes.
He was enthusiastic about the game, and he was also president during the famous Cambridge Springs
the 1906 Cambridge Springs tournament in Pennsylvania?
Right, when we did the program on Frank Marshall.
Yes, Frank Marshall was one of the participants.
Right, and he invited all the players to the White House for a reception.
Exactly. And also, one thing about Teddy Roosevelt, another Fitchburg connection. I mean, not a chess connection, but I wonder actually how many of our viewers know, and thanks again to Joy Contois who confirms this, but actually this information about Teddy Roosevelt, he was the first U.S. president to come to Fitchburg. He did this in June, I believe June 1902. And again, this is found in the books. There are two books on Fitchburg history: Around the World in Fitchburg and The City and the River. Doris Kirkpatrick edited these books, and they came out in the 1970s. By the way, they're available at the Fitchburg Historical Society. Anybody who is interested in Fitchburg history should go to the Fitchburg Historical Society and actually invest in purchasing these books, because this is a wealth of information about Fitchburg history. But Teddy Roosevelt was here in Fitchburg, and again, he was an avid chess player. All right, who do we have actually after Roosevelt?
Would there have been Warren Harding?
Well, can we talk about Taft?
Taft, oh sure. Taft.
Let's talk about Taft. William Howard Taft who was a good-sized
probably the largest president.
Largest president, right. Now, according to the notes that, according to research that this Bill Wall, historian, found out, the Taft played chess as a child. This is according to the National Park Service Visitors Guide for Taft's National Historic Society. So that's in the brochure that they issued to visitors, yeah. And Taft taught his son Robert Taft.
Right. Later, a U.S. senator.
Right, he was U.S. And did he run for president?
He ran for. Yeah, he was at least. I don't. He ran for the nomination.
Nomination, yes, he was seeking a nomination.
Yeah, but he never became a.
Right, never did. Right, exactly.
And his son Robert apparently taught himself how to play by reading a chess book. And when his father, the soon-to-be president, was appointed to some position in the Philippines, they were on his, the long ship sail, and that's when he played officers on board the ship and beat them. He has this Robert Taft had the reputation of being slightly obnoxious about it.
Yes, in fact, that's the note I have.
Right, that's the
his
quote.
son Robert was described as a slightly obnoxious whiz at chess.
We know about this. Slightly obnoxious.
So that's an interesting tidbit on Robert Taft. Okay, let's talk about now Woodrow Wilson, our 28th president. Now, one of his sets is at the Smithsonian, and according to, there was a biography on Wilson written by Carol Dummersmooth Costa. This is a name I'm not familiar with, but she wrote in a biography, and she said that Wilson and his father shared many hours playing chess as well as billiards. Yeah. So those two games they both enjoyed. Okay, you mentioned Harding. Do we want to do
Warren Harding? Yeah. Well, there's an interesting story about Harding. I mean, it was not so much that he played chess, but that he was assassinated in San Francisco.
Yes.
I don't recall the year exactly. But at the same time as that assassination, across the street from where Harding was a tournament going on, the Western Open, which was at that time considered the U.S.
Yes,
Open.
that actually was the U.S. Open. By the way, that was the year was Harding was assassinated in 1923.
1920.
So across the street, they were playing this tournament. Yeah, and what was the rumor?
The rumor was that one of the players in the tournament had poisoned Harding.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know where, but unfortunately, the research doesn't elaborate. Like, why would they even consider that?
But that certainly propped it up the fact that the tournament was going on across the street. Right. Okay, how about Calvin Coolidge, our 30th
Silent
president?
Cal, one of my favorite presidents, who's long-time resident of Northampton,
and you were able to you're familiar with the presidential library.
Yeah, you can't avoid Coolidge, and if
you
ever worked
anyone
in
going to Northampton,
it's on the top floor of the Forbes Library is the Calvin Coolidge Presidential Library. It has a lot of his effects and a lot of his books and so on. And he permeates the history of Northampton. Well, he started on the board of aldermen there, and then he became mayor, and then he became a representative state senator, and eventually president. So, and then he retired to Northampton and died there.
And it was because of the Boston police strike. The Boston police strike really propelled him into the national limelight.
But as for his chess playing, there is a diary reference that he had played somebody named Dal, that he had played an acquaintance.
Yes, actually in the diary. Actually in his diary.
Right.
If one were to find his diaries, in 1886 he wrote, "I played chess with Dal," whoever Dal was, and beat him every game. This is his entry on February 25th, 1886.
So he would have been pretty young at that point.
Exactly, yeah, he would at that age, yeah. Well, let's skip now over a number of presidents. We may go back to them because we have so many presidents who play chess, but we're concentrating on ones who are really passionate about the game. Let's now go up to Jimmy Carter. What can we say about Jimmy Carter?
Well, Jimmy Carter, I don't know whether he he may well have played chess, early on in his life, but he was, in terms of chess, he was distinguished because after he left the presidency, when he retired,
Yes.
he took up chess in a serious way with the goal of becoming an expert. He bought chess books, he bought a chess program, and he tried to improve his play, but by 1997, he had given it up. And,
Yes. In fact, there's a quote.
He left office in 1980, so by 1996 or 97, he had given up and said he realized that he just didn't have the talent for it.
Right, and there's actually he's quoted as saying, around you said about 1997. He's quoted as saying, "I found that I don't have any particular talent for chess. I hate to admit it, but that's a fact." Now, of course, his national security advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was a very passionate chess player.
And he even carved chess sets. There are chess sets that
Jimmy Carter did.
No, Brzezinski.
Oh, Brzezinski.
Right.
Oh, he carved the chess sets.
And he presented them as gifts to people and so on.
And one of those hand carved chess sets is in the Carter Center. And they were actually the others were auctioned off for charity.
Right.
So these hand carved sets that Brzezinski did for Carter were auctioned off. Okay.
Right. And Brzezinski, there's a picture of a photo. He played chess with Menachem Begin at Camp David.
Exactly right. And I believe who was Jimmy Carter's daughter?
Amy.
Amy. I believe she was also.
She also played chess.
She also played chess. I don't
also-
think Carter's wife,
I don't know that.
played
Rosalind.
chess. No, I think, but Amy did.
Right.
Okay, let's go to Bill Clinton. What can we say about Bill Clinton
Well,
as a chess
Bill
player?
Clinton, he went to Georgetown University and he played on their chess team
Right.
in the 1960s.
Yes.
68, so on.
Right, and he played on he played in 1968. He played on the Georgetown University chess team, and he actually we have a photo of I think we have a kid of Jimmy Carter with Garry Kasparov, who was a world champion some years ago. But in 2008, I believe there was a photo taken of I think it's Bill Clinton. But I may be mistaken. There he is. There's Bill Clinton with this is in New York City. I think the year is 2008, and he met with Kasparov. By the way, there was a tradition where presidents would contribute, because we have President's Day.
Right.
We've had President's Day
Since I think the it used to be called Washington's
Yes,
birthday.
we used to celebrate Washington's birthday,
but
was
then
the legal holiday.
somewhere in the 70s, I think it
early
became,
70s.
Right.
But I think it was a tradition for presidents to submit a recipe for President's Day, and Clinton contributed his recipe was for lemon chess pie. Right. So if anyone were to go on the Google Clinton and chess, they would probably find the recipe for lemon chess pie that Clinton contributed for President's Day. Right. And by the way, Clinton's daughter Chelsea, who's now married, but she now continues to play chess on the internet.
Right.
Yeah, so you can find Chelsea on the internet. All right. Well, let's go to Barack Obama. Is he a chess player?
Well, yes, he plays chess. I read somewhere that when he was working as a community organizer in Chicago, that he helped organize a neighborhood chess club.
Yes.
And I've heard that he plays chess with
what?
The First Lady.
Okay, Michelle. Michelle. Oh yeah, Michelle. His wife. I think yes, his wife definitely plays chess. Yeah. Right. And by the way, Obama in his book, one of his books, I think he meant, or actually the book he titled "Dreams from My Father," he wrote that he learned chess from his grandfather and his Indonesian stepfather, and he wrote that he learned chess when he was around 9 years old. Okay, let's go back to some of the presidents we haven't mentioned yet. Can we talk about, for example, let's see, who should we talk about? Truman or Eisenhower, or take your pick.
Well, Eisenhower.
Let's find something about Eisenhower.
Well, he once said that he was more of an indoor kind of person. He enjoyed reading and he enjoyed playing chess in his spare time.
In fact, that was in one of his speeches. In fact, in one of his speeches, he said, "I am an indoor man, and I find more relaxation in playing a game of chess." So if anybody were to go and find Eisenhower's speeches in Volume 1 of his speeches from 1953 to 1960, they would find him admitting that he found chess very relaxing. Yeah.
And as for Harry Truman,
yes.
reportedly, I mean, he had an uncle who was supposedly a very strong player, and he may have learned chess from him. He at least referred to chess in a couple of his speeches, used chess as an example.
Yes.
And so, and other presidents have done that too, but that's a fairly common thing to do.
Okay.
Franklin Roosevelt, interestingly, also played chess.
What we can say about Franklin Roosevelt?
Well, he played chess, and it was known that when he had certain dignitaries visit who also played chess, they would take their time and take some time off and just play a game.
Yeah, you know who one of the most foremost visitors to the White House? Henry Ford.
Henry Ford, that's who I was trying to
In fact, when Henry Ford was Roosevelt's luncheon guest at the White House, they would spend the whole luncheon hour playing chess. And that's actually in one of the biographies of FDR. How about Richard Nixon? Was Richard Nixon a chess player?
No, Richard Nixon was pretty adamantly not a chess player, I guess. I mean, he once said that he never quite understood the game. Somebody made the snide remark that he named his dog Checkers.
The dog, yes, right. His dog was named Checkers. Yeah.
Well, you know, in the chess world, he's best known for, first of all, congratulating Bobby Fischer on beating Tigran Petrosian in one of the candidates' matches in Buenos Aires.
Yes.
But then when Fischer went on to win the World Championship from Boris Spassky in Reykjavik in '72, he never invited him to the White House. And, you know, as we all know, it's a tradition of, you know, if it's a World Series team or a Stanley Cup team, they all get, you know, or Olympic medalists get invited to the White House. Somebody who achieves a major title is generally,
like
you know.
I mean, Fischer was the first American ever to become world chess champion.
Right, and it was all this Cold War talk during the time about, you know, beating the Russians. And he never got around to inviting him.
And it was actually Nixon's Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, who actually urged Fischer to go and play Spassky. You know, Fischer
to reach an agreement, because we have to remember there was all the negotiating about Fischer not.
In fact, Fischer almost wasn't going to make it to Reykjavik, Iceland, in 1972. It was actually Kissinger calling him and urging him to play Spassky, and it did come to pass. Yeah.
Right.
So Nixon. The fact that Nixon did not invite Fischer to the White House is very revealing. Okay, who else can we talk about from the past that we haven't talked about?
Well, there was Millard Fillmore, who advised his son not to play chess.
Okay. Oh, Millard Fillmore? He himself was a chess player, but he told his son, yes. In fact, he here in the research, Fillmore wrote. In fact, his son wrote to his father about how pleasant it was playing chess after a long day of studying at school. And Fillmore wrote back to his son and told him he would rather see him doing something else than playing chess while studying. He thought chess was too sedentary and that sitting all day playing chess would make you crooked.
Right. So
that was Fillmore's attitude toward chess. How about Martin Van Buren, who preceded him, who was the 8th president? He actually played chess. He may have taught his son.
Right.
In fact, we have done a program on Paul Morphy, the great American player Paul Morphy, who went over to Europe, played all the top European players, came back, and when he came back in 1859, Van Buren's son, John, who played chess, actually greeted him, toasted Paul Morphy in New York at that banquet that they had for Morphy. Well, Marty, we've actually presented our viewers a number of U.S. presidents. What's the percentage? Is it
about 3/4?
Three-quarters of our presidents
some connection with the
were
president.
chess players, and some of them were very passionate about the game. And again, the fact that we have so much is in the news about presidential candidates. I thought we would present our viewers something interesting about the connection of our U.S. presidents to chess. Next time, chess fans, we're going to go back to our regular format of presenting you a game for analysis. We hope you join us then. See you next time on Chess Chat.